I think that you have to get away from this begin with the end mindset. If you really want to enjoy what you're doing and you really want to put your all into something, just stop thinking about the end of it. Hello and welcome back to the Samuel Bell podcast. So guys, today we're going to be talking about beginning with the end in mind. Well, with a slight tweak. I want to start this off by saying that this is honestly terrible advice. I understand where it comes from and I understand where it's applicable, but given to the wrong person, this advice can actually be very harmful and lead to a life of emptiness and misery and honestly just a lot of regret. So I know it's really heavy kind of jumping straight into it, but I actually read this a few years ago. There's a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, granted, I understand that I don't know everything about success. I don't know everything about effective people. I don't know everything about everything. But I do understand that this book was written to a certain person and not everyone. I also understand that this book, again, if you read the title, it's for effective people, not necessarily fulfilled people or even successful people. It's effective people, which begin with the end in mind is a very effective way to think, which is why I'm saying this isn't necessarily terrible advice in the sense of getting things done. It's just terrible advice when it comes to planning to live your life this way. Here's what I mean. So I have to kind of turn back the clock a little bit. So in my early 20s, late teens, I actually did network marketing for a while and I learned a ton. I learned a lot. Honestly, being in network marketing really set the foundation for all the success principles and all of the books I read and all of the podcasts I listen to now. It kind of just set my brain up for this success mindset, or it just took this kid out of, the normal world and kind of threw him into this business world, kind of threw me into, getting around these people who wanted to actually develop themselves. They actually wanted to grow and they wanted to be something more than just an employee or even just a normal person. They wanted to be better than average. And so taking an 18-year-old, throwing him into an environment like that, I got around a lot of wealthy people, a lot of successful people, read a lot of books, like I said, listened to a lot of audios and podcasts, and got a good association and had mentorship and all this stuff. And one of the first things I heard was begin with the end in mind. And I lived that way for 7 years, up until I was 25, almost 26. And let me tell you, it worked when it comes to being effective, being productive. It worked when it came to getting the job done. But I was never actually excited about anything. I just was kind of living every day just to get to the next step. Like we had, I guess in that model, we had what's called a roadmap for success. And it was like basically little plans lined up and little roadblocks that not roadblocks, but little steps that you would hit to get to the next level. And for me, for 6 or 7 years, all I did was look at that next step. Everything that came in between the step that I was at to getting to the next step, I didn't necessarily care about. It was just get to the next step. And when you get to the next step, get ready for the next step after that. And once you do that so many times, you start to realize that you missed out on everything that went with going to the next step. So you also realize that this process of begin with the end in mind never actually ends, ever. You just always hit the goal and then immediately you're like, okay, what's next? And then you begin the next step by thinking about the end of it already. You don't even really care about what you just did. You don't even care about the process. You're just like, okay, job well done, let's move on. And that's how I operated for about 7 years. And honestly, kind of sucked. It kind of led to a lot of, emptiness, a lot of, I didn't know it then, but looking back at it now, a lot of just like robotic mindset. It doesn't matter who you help. It doesn't matter. Like, the emotion is gone. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it feels like it takes the emotion away, because you're in this thing, and anything good or bad happens, you don't necessarily really care. You're just like, okay, is this going to get me closer or further away? And if it's getting me further away, I don't want to do it. And if it gets me closer, then let's do it. And you don't get to actually enjoy the moment that you're in. You're just always looking forward to the next thing. And it really strips away a lot. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this. I want to talk about this because it's not just something that I, lived. It's something that I see people do all the time. They start this thing, they start a business, they start a hobby, they start a YouTube channel, they start all these different things, and all they think about is, when I get to this point, I'll be fill in the blank. So they're like, okay, I'm starting this YouTube channel, but when I get to 1 million subscribers, then I'll be happy. When I get to, I'm going to start this business, and when I make $1 million, for whatever reason, it's always a million of something. When I make $1 million, then I'll be happy. And the thing is that if that's how you think about it, you won't be happy. You'll get $1 million or 1 million subscribers, and then you immediately go, when I get 5 million, when I get 10 million, when I get 20 million. And because of the way people are wired, and because of the way we work, and because of the way things work, this never really ends. It just keeps going and going and going and going and going. And like I said before, it ends up just being, yeah, you accomplish it a lot, but it's empty accomplishments. You should be excited to just start the podcast. If you're starting the podcast just to get, or the YouTube channel or whatever, if you're starting it just to say, oh, I got something out, like I got 1 million subscribers out of it, or I got, $1 million out of doing it, I don't think you should do it. I think that that's a very vain way to look at everything. I think, when you have that type of mindset, once the goal is completed, you strip away the excitement of the process and the adventure by thinking about what's next. You begin to become numb to everything that you're going through and the accomplishments that you're going through. And I know I'm kind of harping on this, but the coolest thing about doing this YouTube thing, or creating this podcast, or becoming the person that I'm trying to become, is the part that I'm at right now. Like, this is the most fun part. And if I only look at the end, which is, I don't even know when that is or what that even is, then I can't enjoy right now. Like, I can't enjoy the fact that my last video got, I don't know, like 60 views or something like that. Like, that's the fun part. It's like being like, oh dang, like, man, my video's at 60 views, and like being excited about it. But if I look at 1 million, then what the crap is 60 views? Like, 60 views is nothing. But I remember when I started this channel, and my first video was at like 8 views or something ridiculous, like 4 views or something like that. And to go from 4 to 60, if you think about it as just numbers, I mean, that's a big increase. If it's anything else, if you're investing and you were like, well, your $4 is going to go to $60, that percentage is a big percentage. But for whatever reason, when you think about it in terms of something like YouTube or something like this, it's not that big of a deal. You just want to see 10,000 or 50,000 or 1 million or whatever. And honestly, I think that strips away the fun. Like, it's just like, yeah, cool, I was at 60 views. Awesome. That's 60 people looking at my video. Like, that's little. Like, if I had 60 people in this room right now, it wouldn't even be able to fit. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that's where the fun comes in. It's just embracing those little moments, and not always jumping to, oh, well, I don't have fill in the blank, or I didn't have, fill in the blank or whatever. And so I think that you have to get away from this begin with the end mindset. If you really want to enjoy what you're doing, and you really want to put your all into something, just stop thinking about the end of it. Like, you just started, dude. Like, freaking, why are you thinking about the end of it already? Like, why would you start it if all you can do is think about the end? It's like the process is where the adventure is. Like, when you go and you tell a story to your kids, when you tell a story to your friends or whoever, you're not talking about the end. You're not like, it's like, yeah, okay, cool. They already know you made it, But when you talk to them and you're telling these stories, you're talking about what happened on the way there. You're talking about, if you're going from Dallas to California, your friend doesn't care that you're in California. He obviously knows you're in California. He wants to know about the trip. That's why when you get somewhere, they're always like, "Oh, how was the trip?" They're not like, "How's the destination?" You're both in the same spot. It's how was the trip? And you can go and you can tell them, "Oh, dude, man, we almost hit this. We almost hit a car. Freaking ran out of gas. The tire blew out. We had a bunch of fun. We saw, I don't know, windmills and stuff." I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's where the fun is. The fun is in the trip, the journey. The better way to live your life is to just fall in love with the process of achieving, not the actual achievement. The adventure is the becoming, the creating, and the journey, not the destination. The stories you tell your kids or your future kids or friends isn't just that you made it. It's the how that makes the story interesting. Enjoy the journey or live a life of unfulfillment. And that's why I think that begin with the end in mind is terrible advice if you really want to live a life of happiness. So with that, guys, I'm done. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in to the Samuel Bell podcast. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.